Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. You wanted to see more of bike work here? Today we got this 2018 Honda CMX 500 Rebel. Last week he came to me with the ignition. He just had two wires that he just connected so he can start the bike. He gave me the part. I just switched it out really nice and smooth. Was an easy job. But today we're gonna replace this and we're gonna fix this because Jesus, it needs to move. And we're gonna replace this. Apparently this bike was dropped and he destroyed it together with the mirror. We got all the parts, so let's get started.
I started trying to fix the right side of the handle, first by unscrewing the bolts a little bit of the master cylinder or brake reservoir. As you can see, I also had to loosen the bolts or screws from the handle switch and also loosen up the throttle cables a little bit. When I tried to put it back together, I noticed that there was a tiny gap. That took me a little bit, as you can see here in the video, and at that point I noticed that the whole handlebar was bent, so there was not much I could do about the gap. I put it back together as much as I could. Everything was still working. Obviously I let the owner know. Here we have the brake reservoir and the handle switch straight. I always sit on the bike to make sure it's comfortable to use. And now to the critical side, the side that was broken. First you gotta unscrew this, then you gotta get the cables off, and also the clutch cable as well. Was just a little bit of wiggling here. Of course you can do that at first too, remove the clutch cable at first before unscrewing this. I did not get new levers because the customer told me he wanted to get both new levers eventually in a different color, you know, aftermarket pieces. So I said, okay, I'll leave it. It's just gonna be scratched up. In hindsight, I should have loosened this tightener first before I removed the handle, but it worked out pretty well. As you can see, this piece is pretty broken. So now I'm trying to get the connector out for those two cables and put it back in the new piece. Here you can see both pieces, how broken they were compared to the new one. So now I removed the bolt that was in there. And I noticed I couldn't quite put the thing back in because when it crashed, apparently this bearing or driver or whatever you want to call it also came loose a little bit, so I had to hammer it back in so it fits nice and smooth. And there we go for testing, everything fits nice and smooth. Put the cables back on, put the rubber cover, seal, whatever you want to call it, back on. Get the clutch cable back in. At this point, you might want to loosen up the clutch cable directly at the crankcase to have a little bit more play in the clutch cable to be able to put it back in. Sometimes you can work it out without doing that, but if you have a little bit of trouble before doing anything, just loosen up the clutch cable at the crankcase, is my advice. And when you put the screw back in, you want to do it only about halfway, so you still have some room to adjust it. And don't forget to tighten the clutch cable at the crankcase again. Here we are just putting everything back on. Notice that on the metal plate is up and down. Don't tighten it right away. Always sitting on the bike, make sure you have a comfortable grip, and then tighten it all the way down. And don't forget the bolt for your lever, to also tighten that down. Make sure everything is hand tight and not like bolted on crazy, because you might break the aluminum. Most of that is aluminum and very sensitive. You might break the threads. This part is a tiny bit tricky because this extra bolt that's the connector between the mirror and the handle, the lever, is left-handed instead of right-handed as usual. So you're gonna have to play around a little bit with that, get the mirror on, tighten the bolt, tighten the mirror onto it, you know. It's a little bit of play, but it should be manageable, pretty easy. I mean, I did manage to do it. There we go, just hand tight. There we go. And sit back on the bike, always sitting back on the bike, checking if everything is how it should be. Is it comfortable? Can you see everything through the mirrors?
Keep an eye on my channel so you stay tuned when there's new updates on the bikes.